what is mainstream economic discourse of the global north? What is some basic vernacular of mainstream economics? How does economics as a field of inquiry relate to Pakistani higher education, to research, Pakistani policy? A lot of questions. I am not competent to answer anything about policy and Pakistani higher education. How is development economics framed in current discourse? The Quran is linguistically very sophisticated. And so when I interrogate Pakistani identity, what is the common between me, a US national citizen, and my origin as a Pakistani? We have a fixed point. We read Pakistani and I, Pakistanis, it's identity of Pakistani. I apologize to those who are not Pakistanis and who are listening to me. We use as a fixed point this text as a point of departure. It is the bond between us. Oh, this is something called Googlegram. And it shows how Islamic economics has come about. Nothing from 1600 onwards, at least as far as Google is concerned. And suddenly, look, there is Islamic economics. Not neoclassical economics, not development economics, not macroeconomics, not microeconomics, Islamic economics. What is Islamic economics?
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the PIDE webinar. I'm extremely glad to have Dr. or Professor, I should say, Professor Abdul Khan. We kind of get confused with these things here, but we are very glad to have Professor Abdul Khan with us today. Abdul Khan needs no introduction in Pakistan. He is one of our, in fact, he is the finest economist we produced, and he has done a lot of work, including helping PIDE. He has been a very regular visitor at PIDE and always helped PIDE elevate our standards. And, Khan Sahab has always been very kind to us. We appreciate him a lot. Khan Sahab is one of the most eminent theorists in the world. He has contributed enormously to general equilibrium theory and abstruse subjects in economics, which I know none of us understand. And we have no pretensions to understand them. I've discussed them at length with Khan Sahab, but unfortunately, it's too abstruse. He's published in Econometrica and almost every major journal. And today, I'm very glad to see that Khan Sahab is here with us. And he's going to talk about the relevance or the irrelevance of mainstream economic theory. Khan Sahab has always had a duality to his career. On the one side, he always talks about, he does high theory. On the other side, is always very, very interestingly, how should I say, it's philosophical, very philosophical. He reads a lot of poetry. He says a lot, speaks a lot of poetry, and he writes a lot of philosophical works. So today we are going to get a very good dose of his philosophical side. So with that, Khan Sahab, let me hand it over to you. Please tell us what your thesis is, and we'll spare some time for question and answer. So over to you, Khan Sahab. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Nadeem. Salam alaikum to everyone else. Good morning, good evening. This is the beauty of webinars. Location gets muted. So I'm very grateful. I wrote this remark, very grateful to Dr. Vice Chancellor and my co-author, Nadeem ul Haque Sahib, and to Dr. Nasir Iqbal in arranging this webinar. I speak to the Institute after 11 years, and much has changed. I have, as Dr. Nadeem has specified, a special attachment to PIDE. My best work, and I emphasize this, my best work is published there. It's published there, but not really read, especially by a Pakistani audience. For one thing, it has been primarily in English. And we in Pakistan speak a sort of English mixed with our own vernaculars. Urdu, Sindhi, Pashto, Baluchi, Punjabi. Something I shall abbreviate by the inadequate term Urlish. We speak Urlish. We can neither write a complete, by we, I mean most of us, I mean myself, neither a complete sentence in Urdu. I struggle. And of course, my English is not my mother tongue, so I can't write a complete sentence in English. The two languages in which I have some little facility. But returning back to my publications in PDR, three names stand out, and I should like to begin this 45-minute conversation from my side, and then we will open it for question and answers, as Dr. Nasir has instructed me. Three names I should like to begin with. Professor Sayyid Nawab Haidar Naqvi, a former director of PIDE. Dr. Fazullah Khan Khilji, who was my classmate since I was 10 years old. And Dr. Sohail J. Malik, who would invariably, in his very posh English accent, introduce me when I lectured at PIDE. For the preparation of this specific webinar, I am specially indebted to correspondence with Dr. Khalid Ikram, Dr. Mahmood Ali Ayub, Dr. Aisha Jalal, and Dr. Arshad Zaman. And since this kind invitation, I have been watching PIDE and PIIA and black hole videos and reading some history. Much has changed, and I have been out of touch. I have acquired 5 books of Dr. Ashtiyaq Ahmad in particular. I have learned a lot, and I look forward with this webinar to an initiation of a conversation rather than a culmination. I should like to single out 3 videos out of many I have watched in particular. First, that of Dr. Nadeem Haque himself, the Islah video. Part of it I have also watched on TikTok. And also a PIDE video of the 75th anniversary celebration. And a black hole video of Dr. Hoodboy on higher education. So when I talk of curriculum design in this conversation, I have higher education in mind. We all know Gunnar Myrdal in his Asian drama focused on elementary education. So let me screen share if I may. I've been working this morning. I wake up early. I've been working on my slides, and I shall keep the time in mind. So I hope you can see my screen, and I will go to the abstract which I just began. Let me go to the title. So the title is Mainstream Economic Discourse of the Global North and Global South, also now referred to as East-West Divide, Pakistani Economics Curriculum. So a lot of words here. And this is a 45-minute talk, conversation. And I want to begin by reading the first paragraph of Ludwig Wittgenstein's lecture on ethics, delivered sometimes between September 29 and September 30. I shall follow it up by interrogating some of the words that I have used in my title. In the course of the talk, I shall also have occasion to read, especially in the light of Dr. Nadeem's comments about my not being understood, my publications not being understood. I shall have occasion to read 73:4 and 20:25:6 from the Quran. Finally, I hope to interrogate, and please join me in this interrogation between the difference, because you are economists here, the difference between an economy, a society, a polity, a community, a psychology. How do we cut these disciplines? Are they part of one larger whole, what we in our culture called ilm? I shall conclude, depending on the time that is left, by interrogating the words core, distortion, the names Harris to Darrow for the discourse of by now sidelined field of development economics. So this is the abstract. And now I also have so same title. I want to outline what this talk is not. It is not some big idea, a contribution to the substantive register. It is not some deep mathematical result, a contribution to the technical register. It's not a spasm of self-absorption and self-advertisement. We all have to guard against this all the time. Man has been created weak, as the Quran assures us. It is not a series of name droppings, anecdotes, and reminiscence. But you see, I've already slipped. I've been dropping names. As I say, we have been created weak. What it is simply an attempt by a US academic of a Pakistani national origin to reach a multilingual Pakistani audience. And now that I see some of the names, I'm happy to note it is not only a Pakistani audience. What is mainstream economic discourse of the global North? What is some basic vernacular of mainstream economics? How does economics as a field of inquiry relate to Pakistani higher education, to research, Pakistani policy? A lot of questions. I am not competent to answer anything about policy and Pakistani higher education. How is development economics framed in current discourse? So the outline of the talk, you see, I have some puzzle things. So the talk is puzzling out some things which have been bothering me in a 50-year career. And I think they are relevant. What does it mean to be a Pakistani? To be part of the Indo-Pak subcontinent. To be an economist. What does it mean to be an economist, as opposed to a sociologist or an anthropologist or a psychologist or a political scientist or an anthropologist? Or I already mentioned anthropologist. What does it mean? Economist. I'm economist. What do you mean? I speak like an economist. What do you mean? To be a mathematical economist. Who he? Who she? To be a Muslim. What does it mean? What does it mean? So this is the talk. And I have already taken up a good 10 minutes of the time. So this is going to be the basic outline of the conversation. I told you I will read, so prepare yourself. I will read the first paragraph of Wittgenstein's Language of the Everyday from his Ethics. I shall read about Islamic economics and the importance of the Quran. I have already talked of the sources for the preparation of the talk, so that part is done. I will have this evolution of economics, you see. What is economics today? And the sources are available to us. There has been a leveling of the field, a phrase that Pakistanis now use. It's part of their vernacular, a leveling of the field. And the digitalization levels the field. You have search engines, JSTOR, MathSciNet, Google Scholar available to you. So I want to present a digital epistemological inquiry. But I work as an academic, as a theorist of sorts, although I'm even now thinking, what's a theorist? But in particular, what's the difference between prediction versus understanding. Prediction versus understanding. Some of the videos I have watched by people I admire regularly every week bring an astrologer who predicts the future. Is he a theorist? I will not bother you about my work on Pakistan. All you have to do is to go to JSTOR and punch PIDE, punch my name. You will see all of that is digitized in JSTOR. But I am talking of a curriculum design. So I am talking of commodification. I am talking on education as a commodity. I would like to speak on education as a commodity. Some of it will overlap with, I asked Dr. Nasir, I said, what should I speak on? And I said, people don't know who I am. As Dr. Nadeem said, we cannot really understand what he says. So, or what the papers say. And I agree with you, they are esoteric. They belong to several registers. So I asked Dr. Nasir, I said, what should I speak on? And he said, he has watched my INET video and something around that. So I think there will be some connections between this and the INET video. That has a story of its own. For example, its pompous title was not chosen for me. It was chosen by INET officials. And I railed against commodification, and they used my video as a commodity just 2 or 3 days before the Nobel Prizes were announced for their own purposes. And then I want to make this into a little bit of an honest lecture, because you have found time to listen to me, and so I should at least tell you something about some technical works I deal with. So these two in particular, and in the abstract, I also added the Harris-Todaro hypothesis, and then a summing up. There is a lot to talk about, but that's where we stay. So let me pause here. If there are any questions, then I can address them, or then I can continue.
Well, I think continue. We'll take the questions later.
Okay. So you see, he begins this lecture, Wittgenstein, about a few introductory remarks. So I don't need to screen share anymore. So he says, I have great difficulty in communicating my thoughts to you. And the first one, which almost I need not mention, is that English is not my native tongue. And my expression, therefore, often lacks that precision and subtlety which would be desirable if one talks about a difficult subject. That's first difficulty. It applies to me. English is not my mother tongue. I have no feel for English. The second difficulty, Wittgenstein says, I will mention, that probably many of you come to this, he says lecture, I say webinar, with slightly wrong expectations. And he wants to say a few words for choosing the subject that he has chosen. His subject is ethics. Mine is not. I will not reproduce his word. He says, I should not misuse this opportunity to give you a lecture about, say, economics. So I do not want to misuse this opportunity to give you a lecture about, say, mathematical economics. I call this a misuse, Wittgenstein says. For to explain a scientific matter to you, it would need a course of a lectures and not 45 minutes. Another alternative would have been to give you a popular scientific lecture. A lot of the videos that I have watched, people give popular scientific lectures. That is a lecture intended to make you believe that you understand a thing which actually you do not. And to gratify what I believe to be one of the lowest desires of modern people, namely the superficial curiosity about the latest discovery of science. I reject these alternatives. So two difficulties: language, and to go into some depth and to be aware of what you don't understand. My third and last difficulty is one which in fact adheres to most lengthy philosophical lectures, that the hearer, that's you guys, are incapable of seeing both the road and the goal which the lecture leads to. So you ask now at this point, already 22 minutes have passed, where is he taking us? As Wittgenstein says, what is he driving at? How on earth is he going to get there? All I can do is again ask you to be patient and to hope in the end you may see both the way and where it leads to. And this is the first paragraph of his lecture on ethics. And there's only one other paragraph, and that's it. But to return to my second topic, and that is Islamic economics. I will show you a picture of Islamic economics. You say picture? Yes, a picture of Islamic economics. But before I do that, let me say something which I hope you will not find offensive. But for me, it is not Islamic economics. It's the study of a text. We are a textual people. We, who's we? Let me leave it alone. We are a textual people. And this text is important for me. It is important because of grammar. One of the beautiful names which is not used because it would not be able to have a meaning in the 7th century is God as a grammarian. And the Quran teaches me grammar. And the Quran is very linguistically, we have been talking about language so far. The Quran is linguistically very sophisticated. And so when I interrogate Pakistani identity, what is the common between me, a US national citizen, and my origin as a Pakistani? We have a fixed point. We read Pakistani and I, Pakistanis, it's identity of Pakistani. I apologize to those who are not Pakistanis and who are listening to me. We use as a fixed point this text as a point of departure. It is the bond between us. And so going back to these videos which I have been watching, there's a PIDE video which I then diagrammed and which I think Dr. Nadeem officiated, and it's the 75th anniversary of 75th anniversary of PIDE. 75th is a problematic thing because we split. We had a second partition, and in that video, Hafiz Ahmad Pasha, it was officiated by Dr. Durre Nayab, and Hafiz Ahmad Pasha, Dr. Ishrat Hussain, and Dr. Shamshad Akhtar spoke, and Gohar Ejaz, Dr. Gohar Ejaz spoke, and Dr. Sohail Khalid spoke, and then Dr. Sartaj Aziz, who had been attending the PIDE lectures when I used to lecture, he spoke, and Dr. Ehsan Iqbal, whom I don't know and I heard for the first time. But what was very interesting was at the background, it took me some time, there was a picture of Iqbal and a quotation from Iqbal. And there were some Arabic words. And I have been studying Surah Muzammil. I've been studying 73. And at once I recognized that they are 73:4. So I will not offend you by reciting Remember, the Quran says recite. I will not offend you by reciting in Arabic. I shall give you a translation. And the translation is of 73:4, or add to it and recite the Quran in a leisurely manner. Rutlil Quran al-tartila. Tartila. We understand words, just like we understand tartil. We have some feeling for tartil. And then it says, we will charge thee with a weighty word. What's a weighty word? What's a Fat Wednesday? What does it mean? Qawlan saqila. Saqil. We know saqil, indigestion. Weighty word. And so I'm trying to show you how linguistically sophisticated the Quran is from a variety of registers. And it was 73:4, which was at the background of this webinar, of that webinar. And then I go to another video, and that video begins from Surah Taha, chapter 20, with 26 and 27, 25 to 28. Please concentrate on the English because it summarizes this webinar for me. Expand my breast, my Lord, and ease my affair for me, and loosen the knot from my tongue, so that they may understand my word. This principle I use for this webinar, I use in all of my 50 years of teaching. So allow me, my Lord, to find the clearest expression so that they, whoever they are, whether they are my students at the new school or they are my students in Johns Hopkins, that they may understand. And it's not easy. Look at my work in PDR. Who makes an attempt to understand it? It's on the sidelines. And perhaps it should be. It represents mainstream discourse. What has mainstream economic discourse to do with Pakistan, with Pakistani curriculum? And now I'm getting on to nearing half hour. No, not really half hour, because we spent some 5 to 10 minutes on small talk and pleasantries and introductions. So let me change now to the next step, and that is the digital inquiry. So I shall share screen again. I shall share, and I will go here, and I'll give you some screenshots. And this is the first screenshot. And what is this? Oh, this is something called Googlegram. And it shows how Islamic economics has come about. Nothing from 1600 onwards, at least as far as Google is concerned. And suddenly, look, there is Islamic economics. Not neoclassical economics, not development economics, not macroeconomics, not microeconomics, Islamic economics. What is Islamic economics? And now look at this, development economics. Oh, it takes off from 1953. There was something called the Harvard Advisory Bureau. Dr. Nadeem knows it well. PIDE was at the center of it. And it reached its zenith in some dates. And now look where it is. There's nothing this you can do. He said, why is he doing this? Because I want to carry on a conversation with you. I want you to interrogate what is development economics. I want to empower you and myself as scholars, not as policymakers, not as researchers. One of the great researchers that I admired was David Blackwell, the statistician and the game theorist. He said, I don't want to do research. I can't understand things. I try to figure them out. I try to puzzle them out. But let's continue. Another screenshot. Oh, what is this? Environmental economics. Climate change, the big deal. Behavioral economics. What is this? After 2000. Should this be part of our curriculum? Are the top 5 journals publishing in behavioral economics? Dr. Hoodboy, in his video on higher education, says, oh, Pakistanis are very talented people, and a lot of them have gone into medicine, and they have made a lot of money, but they haven't contributed to research. Should Pakistanis contribute to mainstream medical research? These are questions. We can mull over them. But I want to now unpackage, deconstruct mainstream economic discourse. And I'm doing it in the most easy way. Nothing, no heavy brain power required here. Neoclassical economics. Oh, how come no neoclassical economics up till 1950? There was no adjective neoclassical. Economics was economics. So we go back to this old game between nouns and adjectives. The last one, I won't bore you anymore. Experimental economics. So things are changing. Things are changing. So let me now stop share and let me tell you something else. And this continues with God as grammarian. Of course, God is undefinable. The word samad from the root saad, mim, dal is used only once in the Quran. Not the word, but even the root is used only once in the Quran. What does it mean? There's indeterminacy of translation. Okay, someone raised their hand, so I should stop and listen to what they have to say. Sadia Rana raised her hand.
Go ahead, please, go ahead.
Hello, sir.
Hello?
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, yes, clearly audible.
Thank you. Sir, mainstream economics is what I get an idea is from you is about, it's all about methodological individualism and invisible hand and rationality, and also refers to orthodox new classical tradition. So can we say that the mainstream economics is another form of colonial discourse in the name of economic curriculum?
Wonderful question. But you see, I am headed on a particular track towards a particular goal, and you catch me by my neck and divert me from that goal. You say, I don't care where you are going, you first answer my question. And they are deep questions. And I think you have used a lot of words. But in your question, I am most impressed by what I heard to be a Freudian slip. Instead of saying irrationality, you slipped and said irrationality. So what's the difference before we go to these high things about invisible hand and neoclassical economics and colonial discourse? Very, very big words. You see, I'm starting very simple. I'm asking for simple words. So before we go into this, you might want to think while I speak, what's the difference between rationality and irrationality? But with your permission, Dr. Nasser has given me 45 minutes. So I don't want to take, you are in some sense saying, stop, talk only to me. And please forgive me, I cannot. I want to talk to a difficult, large audience, but I would love to correspond with you on all of these difficulties. I don't know who you are. I don't know your background. I dare say you don't know who I am. So in the spirit of Wittgenstein's lecture, please try to see where I am coming from. And yes, I am trying to deconstruct mainstream neoclassical economics and mainstream economics. I didn't use the word, the adjective neoclassical. I don't know what it means. I just gave you some digital things from the digital humanities. So now that you have totally diverted me from what I was originally going to say, let me go back and see what I had originally intended to say. So let me screen share again. I share screen and go back to, yeah, I apologize for being a little abrupt, but you see, I have only 45 minutes. So I have talked of Wittgenstein and the language of the everyday. I have talked of Islamic economics and the importance of the Quran. I'm constantly talking about these videos and about the books of Dr. Ishtiaq Ahmed and about Dr. Aisha Jalal's books. And now I have with me the report of the East and West Pakistan panel on the 4th 5-year plan. It is fascinating. It's fascinating. I have shown you the digital epistemological inquiry. I said I will not talk to you on the work of Pakistan, prediction versus understanding. And then I want to talk on, okay, so let's see. So let me get back on track. No, I don't want to talk on this. Okay. So this on education as a commodity was one of my papers in the PDR, I think around 1991. And the discussant was Professor Ronald Jones, who just recently passed away. And after that lecture, it was a standard joke that I typically prepared the paper after giving the lecture. And he was to be a discussant of the lecture. So he would always say that it was a matter of great pride for him that he discussed the paper before the paper itself was written. You will find his comments in PDR if you search for education as a commodity. So you see, as now I'm addressing you obliquely. You talk of the colonial discourse and neoclassical economics and curriculum design and all of these things. I'm just talking of simple linguistic things. We can't speak one language, you see. We can't, who's we? We Pakistanis can't speak one language. You look at the videos. We will throw in English words when we speak Urdu. We will throw in Urdu words when we speak English. One of the greatest difficulty for me has been in the reading of Urdu. I get establishment in Urdu. I say conference in Urdu. So in a sense, Urdu itself is evolving. Our language is evolving. So it's what do these words mean? And that's why I quoted to you the Quran. The Quran knows this. He says you have to communicate. You and I are now trying to communicate. You asked me a long question, a deep question. Is it serious question or is it just to impress the others? No, it's a serious question. So let's talk about it. Let's think about it. Let's talk about it with silence. So let's see now. Now I'm really nearing the end. I have been speaking on curriculum design for a Western curriculum for quite some time. I gave a talk at the graduate center at the new school at the City University of New York about 3-4 years ago. I repeated it in the sociology department. Western economics, the discourse of with this economics now with its top 5 publications and labeling is sick, is not very well. This is clear from my INET video. And so I've been talking of I have notes on curriculum and so on, but here I want to talk about a Pakistani curriculum. What should we teach in the Pakistani curriculum? And should it be, when you say economy, how different is it from society? How different is it from polity? how different it is from a community. Are these relevant for economics or not relevant for economics? And you talk of rationality and irrationality. How different is it from psychology? And so you see, it is in a constant state of flux. It is evolving. Economics is evolving in the West. It is evolving in Pakistan. So let us try to get a hand on it. And now I want to end by two words, my discussion of two words, and I will take about the last 5 to 7 minutes and then call it a day. So any questions you have at this point? If you make it short or any comment, I'll try to answer it. Otherwise, I will continue on what I want to do.
Ansab, let's take the questions at the end.
Very good. Thank you. Okay, let me continue. Very good. Thank you very much.
Everybody, please raise your hand.
And yeah, I will respond to your questions as adequately as I can. So two words, I think two words are relevant here. You say, this is not a healthy economy. This is a distorted economy. IMF says yours is a distorted economy. And they give you what needs to be done to make it healthy. What does it mean? What does IMF understand by a distorted economy? Who is IMF anyway? Who stands behind IMF? What is the difference between an economy and a game? Is a game being played? Is the IMF one of the stakeholders in this game? By stakeholder, I mean participants. What is the meaning of a distorted economy? What's the meaning of a free market economy? And like Wittgenstein says, this will require a lot more time. And I will just refer to you to what I teach in 3 places. And this is relevant to your question about, Dr. Rana's question about ideological. I teach at Hopkins. I've been teaching for the last 50 years, except for a break of 4. I also teach at the New School in New York. I teach their basic micro course. And I teach the book. It is the sacred book of modern economics to me. It is also a farce. It is Debro's theory of value. You should Google, it is available on PDF. You should get a copy and try to read it. I teach it to the extent that I can. I've been teaching it since the very semester that I joined Johns Hopkins right after graduate school. So there are 2.5 theorems. He defines an economy as opposed to a game. And Dr. Asghar Khadir is here. He will understand economy, his definition as an economy as a mathematical object. He then defines a solution concept for an economy, which he calls a competitive equilibrium. And the 3 theorems are, under certain assumptions, a competitive equilibrium exists. That's the main theorem of the book. But there is 1.5 other theorem. Another theorem is a competitive allocation of resources, which he defines in the book, is in some sense non-wasteful and efficient and optimal. Many words can be used, but in its most primitive way, it is good. So that's one theorem. It's called the first fundamental theorem of welfare economics. And this is a book 1959. We are in 2023. The second theorem, the second fundamental theorem of welfare economics is that you give me an allocation of resources that you, whoever you are, think it desirable. And I will sustain that allocation by a price system, such that if you take the price system as given and don't care about the community or society or polity, take the price system as given and be greedy at the price system, maximize your self-interest, you will attain that allocation which you thought to be desirable. A very deep theorem, goes back. Some of my teachers say, I don't say it now. It goes back to Adam Smith and the 18th century. Goes back to one of his books, Wealth of Nations. Now economists have started also reading Theory of Moral Sentiments. So where is IMF coming from? Is it coming from Debrow's theory of value? Is it coming from Wealth of Nations? Is it coming from Theory of Moral Sentiments? And there is no excuse, right? You can read. The Quran asks you to read. Read Adam Smith. Empower yourself as a scholar. But you are shackled with careers and with the need to earn your bread and your livelihood. You can't just go on a reading spree. Yes, we all face this, more or less. We all face this. So let me go to the third fundamental theorem of welfare economics. And that is this idea of core. And I hope you will find some resonance with this idea of a core. A core allocation for an economy, the same mathematical object that Debrow defined. It is an allocation that is group rational. You say, what do you mean by group rational? You already used rational and irrational. And I'm talking to Rana Saiba. You already use rational, irrational. So I'm saying group rational. Where am I coming from? It means no coalition can tell the other coalition in the economy, look, we don't want to be part of your economy. Give us back our resources. We can do better for our own than what we are doing with you as part of your economy. It is the stuff of which the US Civil War was made. A region of the United States said, give us our own resources. We don't want to be part of the union. We can do better for our people using our own resources than we are doing by staying in the union. And Abraham Lincoln said, no, the union must be preserved. And the Pakistani army said, the union must be preserved. Abraham Lincoln won. The Pakistani army lost. And we had the second partition, Bangladesh. And that's why that separate report on the fourth five-year plan by the East Pakistani economists and the West Pakistani economists, separate report, is so crucial for understanding Pakistan. So that should be part of the curriculum for sure. But these three fundamental theorems of welfare economics, should they be part of the curriculum? And how about statistics? And how about economic arithmetic? And how about data sources? How about accounting? Should it be part of the curriculum? And now let me conclude. I think I began with, we are a multilingual society and we speak Urlish and we have difficulties understanding each other. And we are attached to our languages. Our languages give us identity. Jinnah Sahab announced in 1947, Urdu and only Urdu will be the national language. And the roots of the partition, the second partition, could be traced there. Then the little time that I have spent in Pakistan, I've spent most of my life abroad, but the little time that I have spent in Pakistan, I have spent, no, actually, the little time I have spent in Abbottabad, but I have spent 2 years in Karachi. And there were language riots later on, the Sindhi and the Urdu speaking people. So it has to be part of the curriculum, you see. And there are sources. What are these sources? In Delhi, there is Anne Marie Schmel Marg. In Lahore, there is a Schmel Road or Schmel Avenue, I don't know, Anne Marie Schmel. In Bonn, there is a passage on which different names are put. Hausdorff, Beethoven, Anne Marie Schmel. Who is Anne Marie Schmel? She was an authority on Islam, and she was an authority. She was a professor at Harvard. She was an authority on Eastern languages. In particular, she wrote a book, Pain and Grace. Half of it on Mir Dard, the Indian poet, Urdu poet Mir Dard, and Shah Abdul Latif Bhitai, the Sindhi sage. And she puts them both in the same book. Should that be taught in the curriculum? Is toleration necessary for economic development? Toleration of whom? Of each other. Of each other's languages. To get to know each other through the languages. As the prayer which I began with this webinar with says, loosen the knot, oh Lord, loosen the knot in my tongue so that the others can understand. Have we tried to understand the other? Have economists tried to understand the language of their others? And here I refer to mainstream economic discourse. And I don't want to use as crutches words like colonial, non-colonial, ideological, right, left. I teach, like I say, at Hopkins, and then I teach at the new school, which has a left-wing orientation. And then I also have very close friends and intellectual contacts with the George Mason University, which has a right-wing orientation. So these are my others, right? These are my others. And I was a close friend of Jim Buchanan, and my colleagues at Hopkins would say, but with your politics, how can you get along with Jim Buchanan? And so on, so on. So toleration, how do we design this curriculum? So as I assured Dr. Nasir that this will be an exploratory talk. I thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. Thank Dr. Nadeem that he thought of me, and I managed to try to at least communicate to you where I'm coming from. And just like my paper on education as a commodity, I hope inspired by your questions, I shall be able to finish a paper based on this talk. Thank you very much.
Folks, if you want to ask a question, let us know. Munib Shah, if you're ready to ask a question, jump in. Okay, meanwhile, let me ask you, Hansa. Language is an evolving thing. As you know, English kind of evolved from so many other languages. 80% of English is languages. Urdu also evolved from Turkish or Persian. So should we pay so much attention to language, or is language universal? And that the body of knowledge that you're talking about is also universal. So it's up to us to draw from it. And are we drawing on the right sources, or are we not?
So you want me to just take every question and answer, or wait till others also ask?
No, go ahead. You start off. I don't know, people are warming up.
I think this is a deep question, Nadeem. You know it. It goes back to Chomsky's thing of deep grammar. And so in a sense, we are hardwired, all of us, on basic deep grammar. And we have these departments of linguistics and so on, which identify over a whole range of languages with their roots, what are the underlying currents and so on, so on. So we have a reading group on bad faith communication. And this is by a philosopher, a cognitive scientist, a linguist and a cognitive scientist, two game theorists and myself. And I have been learning a lot. My problem, you see, is the same as the problem with Rawls. And Rawls's theory of justice, he asks everyone to retreat behind this veil of ignorance, to shed your identity and think through the questions. My problem is I cannot shed my identity. And if I am hardwired, yes, it is so, I may be hardwired. It's this old business of Shylock. When we prick you, don't you bleed? And of course we bleed, all of us bleed. We laugh, all of us laugh. Laughter is part of language. It can be used in many, many different ways, but it's part of language. So, but something emotional is lacking. Something about feelings is lacking. Our basic roots are lacking. It's difficult for me, I speak for myself, to motivate myself. I've been asking myself, what is my native language? And Veena Das, the distinguished psychologist, told me, how can you say Urdu is your native language? And I had a clear answer. When I hear Urdu poetry, tears come to my eyes. When I hear English poetry, I relate cognitively, but tears do not come so readily to my eyes. It is my native language. When I hear Pakistanis, I've been in this US since 1960, 69. My children were born here. I married my classmate here. How am I a Pakistani? My Spanish friends tell me, you are not, you are American. How are you Pakistani? But I know I'm Pakistani because something emotional happens when I hear Pakistanis recite the Quran. When they talk, there is language I can understand. I understand. I can relate to a Baluchi. It's not my language. I can relate to a Pathan. I am Pathan. My roots are Pathan, but I can relate. And of course, I grew up in the 2 years. And so it's a deep question. I think we should say, and then what do we study? How do we limit our curricula? You mean we'll teach everybody everything? We cannot. So how do we do it? We need a commission. You are in a position of power. We need a commission. We need to think, but our survival depends on education. I mean, I don't have to tell you. The apostle said, for knowledge, you go to China. The apostle said, the ink of the scholar. We have all of these resources in our DNA. We are not using them. And of course, colonialism has played a role. Surely it has played a role. We are a colonized people, but the Africans are a colonized people. I can relate to a South African because I have a colonial past with him or her. Where do we stop? I don't know, but something needs to be done. Our education system, something has to be done. We have to look within ourselves. So I'm sorry to get emotional and I'm sorry to make it rhetorical, but it's a deep question. I don't have answers. I am puzzling out things. I'm puzzling out questions of my identity.
Munib Shah sahab, can you speak now or not? Munib Shah. You still have your hand raised. Bole. You are audible. यार आपकी आवाज नहीं ठीक आ रही. मुनीब साहब आपकी आवाज नहीं ठीक आ रही है. पास के माइक के पास हैं जरा. Okay, Kiran Mahfouz, go ahead. Kamran Mahfouz.
Assalamu alaikum.
जी.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
Sir, how are you?
Very well, thank you. I am very happy to recognize you. Thank you for making time.
I'm a huge fan of you and Professor Jawad, and I have been following you a lot for quite long.
You are referring to Professor Jawad Noor?
Yes, Professor Jawad Noor.
I see, I see.
चलिए सवाल
I
पूछे
just
सवाल
wanted,
पूछे।
yes, I just wanted to make a request. And as you said that you are also teaching Debru's theory of value. Is it possible for you to record the lectures and put them on YouTube so that we can benefit, if possible for you?
No, you see, this is a very interesting question. Very interesting question. You speak like the president of my university. He wants to improve input-output ratios for education. He wants to put minimum resources and get the maximum output. He's a true economist, although he's not been trained in economics. He's a lawyer. His name is Ron Daniels. He's a great transformative leader. And one way would be we record the things and then Hopkins sells them or gives them out and so on, so on. I have a problem. I have a problem with that because these lectures are not given in the abstract. So you see, you just don't talk. You just don't lecture on Debru's theory of value. You talk to someone. I am now talking to you. I try to teach theory of value to those people who are sitting in the room. So I must first learn, as Wittgenstein says, who they are. And they must learn who I am. Otherwise, the words will not be understood. They will be not understood in the depth with which they ought to be understood. So recordings are commodities. We sell commodities. Yes, I can record them. I sell a commodity. People will hear. But those lectures are designed for the 9 people. Today, I am now right in the middle. We have met my class, my graduate class. It's mandatory for them to take my course. And there are about 10 of them, 2 men and 8 women, I think. I'm getting to know them. And then I will go and begin with the teaching. So, but now communications are easy, you see. There's several places in China, in Taiwan, in Turkey, they organize a series of 4 lectures on Zoom, for example, on the theory of value. I can talk. Then I would be talking to a particular audience whom I know and the background, just like I'm talking to you now in this webinar. I just don't talk in general on the title. I talk to someone. I talk to you. So I'm opposed to recordings in this sense. Of course, they are fine. One can record them. Some of the students record and hear them. I hope I'm answering your question.
जी, सादिया राना साहब. सादिया राना.
Hello, sir. A very interesting session indeed. Sir, my question is regarding the distorted economy. As you said, sir, what I get the idea that distorted economy is based on distorted incentives in many senses. So how we can branch out these incentives, in your opinion?
You see, you think of me as more knowledgeable than I am. If you look at my CV, it's now available because I have to commodify myself. The department chairman insists on it. So I have now prepared a CV. I was reminded about a month and a half back by one of my colleagues, please update your CV because it's important for those who will join us and so on. And if you see the CV, I already mentioned Dr. Sohail Malik, but other than, and Dr. Arshad Zaman he was here. I heard his voice, or so I imagine. And other than Dr. Arshad Zaman sending me to a mission to Jordan for 2 weeks, and Dr. Nadeem Haque inviting me to IMF for a week, and Dr. Sohail Malik giving me a consulting assignment in IFPRI in the summer. So this is my work for the World Bank and for IFPRI. I am innocent of policy. I have no idea about what we should do for Pakistan. I can pretend, I can send you some sentences, I can act, I can make a serious face, a serious platonic face, and say I have the knowledge, but I don't. Don't take me so seriously. I'm just a questioner. I'm questioning. But now I should like to say, if you are interested in distortion, look at Debro. Look what he means by a free market equilibrium. And then see, is it applied to Pakistani economy? Is Pakistani economy an economy in the sense of Debro? And does it have a free market equilibrium in the sense that Debro formalizes? And if it doesn't, why doesn't it? And what are the distortions? And here I mean distortions between markets. I don't mean incentives. Incentives is something from information economics. As I showed you in digital humanities, if I had to go through it all over again, I would say informational economics and see how the timeline rides up. So I'm not talking about incentives. This is a more modern development. I'm talking about old welfare economics, the old welfare economics, and then the new welfare economics. And I'm talking about the theory of the second best. You go to the search engines, go to Google Scholar and put their theory of the second best, put their Pareto optimality, and you will get what you mean by a distorted economy. Then you as a Pakistani tell me, does it apply or doesn't it apply? Should we have Debro in the curriculum or should we not? Dr. Mehboob ul Haq, God bless his soul, made sure that Debro will not be taught in Pakistan, and was never part of the curriculum. The Econometric Society meetings were never held. Indian Bhaskar Datta, a very distinguished economist, told me, we are willing to give the resources. Why don't you have the Asian meetings of the Econometric Society in Pakistan? And the first meeting of the Econometric Society was held at Lums. And after that, I'm not sure whether any other meeting was held. And at that meeting, the president of the Econometric Society, Guy Laroque, came. And so did John Moore. And so did Kaushik Basu. It was a wonderful occasion. And I have nothing but praise for Dr. Guy Laroque. He was told, why don't you take the afternoon off and go and see the Wagah border and see the changing of the guard and so on. He said, no, that means I would have to miss some of the presentations of the young. And I came here for the presentations of the young. And I can't do that much as I would like to be a tourist. So let's get serious. Let us think about the sentences that we speak. I don't know what prescriptions. It is not my place to know.
Acha Khan Sahab, then I must bring another thing to your attention. In a sense, I must pick up the gauntlet you've thrown. Khan Sahab, you are a theorist. You basically have done more mathematics than economics. Now, would you agree with me that mathematics is a universal language?
Very, very interesting. In my initial answer to you, I wanted to talk about it. My mind slipped. This is a very interesting question. Very interesting question. One day I think yes, one day I think no.
If mathematics is a universal language, and we all understand mathematics, then the economic models that you guys propose, which you yourself, and you're talking again and again about Debro, that short book is more mathematics than economics, right? I mean, and his 5 theorems, as you said, they're so universal and general that we find them very hard to really apply. Now, suddenly you're saying, okay, look at Debro, does it apply to Pakistan or not? So let me go back from there to the IMF. IMF is taking Debro's construct. IMF is taking your mathematical models, and IMF is applying them to Pakistan. What do you find wrong with that?
Very interesting. Very interesting. This is a standard question, you see. Is Debro's book economics or mathematics? And let me first start with the pedagogy. And if you look at the curriculum of the new school, and it is now called the New School University, all you have to do is to Google New School, and it's very Marxist-oriented department with Anwar Sheikh and all. You know the history. And I've been teaching the theory of value for at least 2 decades. And some of the students get so excited, they ask the department and make me teach another advanced course. of mathematical economics. And I remember the late Roy Radner would always say, Ali, I am stunned. You teach measure theory at the new school, because new school is purely descriptive and historical. And so firstly, the question is, how do I teach? So let's forget about that. I don't want to talk about that. But why do I capture the attention of the students who are technically not qualified? They are not qualified like the students at Hopkins are qualified. Why do the non-technical students at George Mason and New School give me the attention that they do when I talk of Debro? And answer is, and it's a mystery to me, Debro's book changed the style and signature of economics. A modern economist writes the way that Debro instructed. Take the economics written before 1954, just any random, pick QJE and so on, and now pick Econometrica. Pick Econometrica before 1954, some issue, and pick the Econometrica issue now. Note the difference. If you don't understand Debro and you do not make the effort, you have handicapped yourself. You have now become a servile follower of the ideas of those who know Debro. And you will have to listen and nod in submission and do whatever they want. So in a sense, the computable general equilibrium for a long time, you know it, in IMF got very involved. IMF got very involved in Islamic economics. I mean, Mohsen was there. Mohsen has a book. Mohsen and Abbas Mira Khor have a book in Islamic economics. So IMF has its own fish to fry. But I think you would have to learn Debro. And I remember John F. Kennedy had a very illustrious council of economic advisors. Paul Samuelson refused to serve formally, but Kenneth Arrow and Tobin were on it, and Kenneth Arrow was representing the technical point of view. And this is an ongoing struggle, but Debro can be used as a ladder or as a crutch to understand the economics of his time and our time. And to be concrete, to understand Hicks's value and capital. Now, value and capital, you can't say. Of course, there are appendices. It's 1939. It's all in English. Theory of the consumer, theory of the producer. And the mathematics is standard linear algebra. Debro clarifies it. Debro takes you as a key to understanding Foundations of Economic Analysis by Paul Samuelson, 1947. Debro will take you to understand von Neumann Morgenstern, the theory of games, 1944. I'm not talking of 2023. I'm talking of mid-century, man. I'm talking of basic texts of the subject. We said, no, this is too technical. And Dr. Mahbub Haq maintained this. Ye to hamare liye to nahi hai. So here you have relegated yourself to a servile role. You can't understand the master. You can't question the master. You cannot say, but general equilibrium is a farce. Debro is a farce. You cannot say there is no government in Debro. You cannot say there is no money in Debro. You cannot say that markets open only once, and Debro talks of an entire planned future, but markets open only once. There are no expectations. Debro runs afoul of Keynes. So should Keynes and Debro be taught together? So these are all important questions, but we cannot take our lead from IMF or from the Bank of Sweden because it awards Nobel Prizes every year. These are institutions with their own purposes. They are participants in the game. What is the game that you are playing? And on whose behalf are you playing? These are important questions. I'm not in a position of power in Pakistan. I would be most incompetent. I'm just an academic. I just teach. But these are very, very important questions. Should Debro be taught or should not be taught? Let me tell you in passing, after I retire, Debro will not be taught in my department. But look at modern econometrics, econometrica. Look at the last 3 issues. You'll have to teach that. What is the language? It's the language of Debro. It's the language, as you began in your question, language of mathematics. Which mathematics? Mathematics itself is evolving. Topology is becoming algebraic topology. Geometry is become algebraic geometry. Number theory is become topological number theory. So constant evolution of the subjects, constant evolution. Which mathematics are we using now? And believe it or not, we are now using mathematical logic.
But Khalsa, wouldn't you agree that economics as it has evolved, including Debro, and what we have developed, the construct that we have developed that we now operate in, of it the part is the IMF and the various institutions going to north, the various institutional frameworks in which we operate. Given those institutions that we operate in and the mathematics that is provided to us to analyze those institutions, don't you agree then that economics, the way we teach it right now, neoclassical economics, macroeconomics, etc., tends to be very useful when we are thinking in terms of policy or analyzing an economy, or would you also depart there?
No, I think in that sense, I am biased, and what I say is self-serving. My co-authors laugh at me. Say, you are 75 years old, you are still getting excited. And I'm very excited about my teaching. And I'm not doing it like I'm teaching them chess openings. I'm teaching them of things which I believe are relevant for our,
okay, let me digress a little. You, when you came to PIDE, and even otherwise, you've written a lot on development economics, and you took a keen interest in development economics for a while, and you were very critical of standard development economics. I mean, within the realm, not outside the realm. How do you look at that work of yours now, going back? And how do you think that work, or development economics? Okay, in Pakistan, we make a lot of development economics, and the World Bank makes a lot of development economics. Speak to our students here who are not here. How do you view development economics? And from your point of view, how should they think of learning economics and using it in their career?
So I will preface. Now I lost my chain of thought. Yes, one of the ways I will preface is I'm very grateful to you for this invitation, precisely because I have spent the last 3 weeks, actually since the invitation came, mulling about development economics. And if you look at my work in the PDR on development economics, I am very proud about. I never wrote up the Iqbal lecture, but I did publish the Qaid-e-Azam lecture. The institute has been very kind to me. They invited me for the Rainis lecture and also for the Mahbubul Haq lecture and so on. But it has an undercurrent of the Harris-Todaro hypothesis. And the Harris-Todaro hypothesis, in the context of simple 2 or 3 sector models, which Harry Johnson used to teach within the context of the Pakistani Advisory Bureau to the officers of the Planning Commission, you would have these things in Murray and all these names, you know these names, Mikal Ahmad and several others who would go and attend and so on. That has now been transcended. You see modern development economics, you see the Banerjee Duflo Prize, Nobel Prize. I mean, it is this randomized clinical trials. So it's not having any theory. And then international trade theory has been sidelined. Professor Bhagwati did not get the Nobel Prize. The person who got the Nobel Prize is Krugman. Krugman has sidelined development economics to economic geography. He recently has another piece on where economic geography stands. So should it be part of the curriculum? So if I had to pick out of the blue among the superstars in economics here, in development economics, I suppose it would be Debraj Ray and Dilip Mukherjee, Avinash Dixit at Princeton. These are the development economists. But Avinash Dixit, as a MIT PhD, when he first came out on optimal growth and so on, is a very different commodity. than Avinash Dixit of today. He is a political economist. He has a lot of work on governance. Debraj Ray has been running, he just celebrated his 65th birthday. He runs an NYU seminar, very distinguished NYU seminar called NRET. I said, what the hell is NRET? NRET is the new research economic thought or some such thing. So the point I'm trying to make is development economics got incorporated in mainstream economics, and mainstream economics in its incorporation changed its very identity. It became informational oriented. In a sense, all of economies are now developed or underdeveloped, and this is where the question from Rania Sahiba makes sense, because it became a matter of incentives, of information. So a lot of now, we talked of the Arrow-Debreu model, there's a lot of work now in communication using the Crawford-Sobel model. So what is Crawford-Sobel model? Well, it's a two-player game, a sender and the receiver. The sender wants to make sure that the receiver acts in the way that is in the sender's interest. The sender could be IMF, the receiver could be the Pakistani economy, and you get some insight. So in a sense, the development economics literature in the 50s with Rosenstein, Rodin, and Paul Streeton, and all these luminaries who would come to the Pakistan Institute of Development Economics, the profession has moved on, and look at the language of the Crawford-Sobel model. It's substantively very different from Arrow-Debreu, but technically, in terms of linguistics and so on, it is the language of Arrow-Debreu. I mean, the basic objects are those of Arrow-Debreu. And so this whole question of informational economics and how do you, what is the big deal? The big deal in economics, which you know better than I do, is strategic misrepresentation. What do we call strategic misrepresentation in Arabic? We call it kazab, lies, lying to attain your objectives. But that is studied as strategic misrepresentation. So this information economics, how is it going to touch us, whoever us are? These are serious questions. They have to be thought through seriously. We have to cut the world in a particular way. What way? I don't have answers to these questions, but yes, you are absolutely right. I surely think modern economics is a very rich subject. It teaches critical thinking. It is a subject on the crossroads. You see, so many different roads cross in what is economics. And we are very much part of it, because we read the core text. We read Quran, some of the words. I said tartila, I said saqila. So our languages have an Arabic undercurrent. We are Indo-European. We are not a Semitic language, but they have an undercurrent. We read Persian. The old days, you did Urdu, you did Persian. My maternal grandfather knew Persian and Arabic. So we are used to translations, and yet we subscribe to the indeterminacy of translation. We are always translating from one register to another register. To what extent this should be a part of an economics curriculum? Yeah, these are very important issues. I don't pretend to have an answer. But yes, I am an academic. I have not contributed anything to any economy. Well, I would like to believe that with my, I don't know however many PhDs I have produced, I don't count them because I'm a very superstitious person. As we say in Urdu, nazar lag jayegi. So I don't count the number of PhDs. But I should like to believe that I did influence them.
Yes, thank you so much. My voice is clear. So thank you, Dr. Ali, for this talk. And I have like a couple of questions while reading this, the stuff from the East and West Pakistan. So the first question is it the only economic tussle between these two, or there is something else that lead to such a disaster? The second question that is when I talk to like a few representatives from government, they said at the very earlier stages of our development, we used to have a caliber to devise our own policies. And then there was a middle phase where we have the role of these international financial institutions to help us in terms of devising the development model and something like that. But in the last 2 to 3 decades, we lost everything, and now we totally depend on these lenders to give us policy prescription. So where we went wrong, and is there any reversal of this entire issue?
Thank you very much. Very, very, very interesting. Very interesting. Very interesting. So let me take, you see, if I start from your last sentence, where did we go wrong? And the answer is simple. It's our education system. Our education system at all levels. Our education system. It goes back to the thing, I have a very clever daughter, she's interested in chemistry, but I'm not going to send her abroad for higher education in chemistry. And you say, why not, Khan Sahab? Why not? He said, because when she comes back, she will ask me questions to which I do not know the answer. So we have been very suspicious of education because education creates trouble, right? If you are establishment and you have a very good education system, that education may come from the Quran, but this very rich education system, you start questioning, you become anti-authoritarian. When I last talked, I don't think at PIDE, at another place, a decade ago, maybe more than a decade ago, I was still talking on the Quran and on Wittgenstein and Deleuze, and one gentleman raised his hand and said, you have read the Quran, under whose guidance did you read? And I said, the Quran says read.
Yeah.
And I didn't read it under anyone's guidance. I tried to read. One of the things which I wanted to do in this talk, I wanted to read to you the book I'm going through for Arabic grammar. I wanted to bring to your attention that when I say God as a grammarian, I wanted to bring to your attention that in Arabic, there is the singular, there's a dual, and there is a plural. So it's already triple. And there are 10 cases. There are 10 cases for the verbs. Which case is used where, in which ayat, and whether it's singular or plural. It is a world. It is a world. God has given us this. He said, investigate the grammar of the Quran. So I don't need guidance. Of course, I need guidance, but I don't need a particular guide. I have it. And the apostle was told, read, recite. And he said, I cannot recite or I cannot read. So we know this. It is part of our DNA. But let me stick to the question. The second partition, the happenings of March 25th and December 16th, where they guided only by economics. Answer, no. In my judgment, you will make your own judgment. This middle phase, which you talk about, the middle phase is a failure of the education. And now we take our orders, marching orders, as I see the implication in your question, from lenders. So what is Ayub Khan's book titled? Friends, not masters. But how can the money lender be your friend? The money lender wants your return on his or her investment. I don't know what gender IMF has. So it is there. So why did this all happen? But Rana Saiba raised this question of incentives. Who were the stakeholders? And that's where Debro teaches you blindness and insight. It gives you both. What are the agents in Debro? Consumer, producer, and a fictitious agent who will determine the prices. What are the agents now? What are the stakeholders in the economy of Pakistan? Following Avinash Dixit, we try to model the economy of Pakistan. The autocrat, the oligarch, the people. How should we make a model? Do we even need to model? Or do we just need arithmetic? Do we just need to run regressions? Do we need theory? What do you mean by theory? And Dr. Nadeem has already said something quantitative, something mathematical. But you know, some of the best work in theory is being done by literary critics. Literary critics is in our very DNA because we are textually oriented. We have to understand a sacred book. So it's all here. It's all here. Who is going to put it all together? There are incentives, as Rana Sahiba said. So different stakeholders have different incentives. How are we going to overcome those incentives? Who is going to overcome incentives? And now we are in the middle of the register of politics. I am not into politics. I am just an academician. But there are important issues. But you raise a very important question. But you see, in all of the celebrations, all I hear from PIIA videos and PIDE videos and the black hole less, it's 75-year celebration. But it's not a celebration. There was a second partition. We have to learn from that second partition. How can we ignore it? It was a traumatic event. We were partitioned. We were partitioned. Why were we partitioned? Yeah, it's a problem. What does it mean for Pakistan and for Pakistani identity, for Islamic identity? What does it mean? I don't know. Or we all...
Ansab, last question. I can't let you go without this. In all that you say, and I've known you for a long time, I've always noted a yearning, or what I call shades of Edward Said. He wrote about exile in his last days, and I sense an exile thought in you too. Would life have been different if Ali Khan were teaching at a Pakistani university of a similar stature at Johns Hopkins? Let's do a counterfactual and see.
This is a very emotional question. Thank you for putting my name next to Edward Said. The last course that he taught was with Aqil Bilgrami, and my son took that course. And you are close enough to me that my son has had difficulties, and I am passing through a distressing period in my life. I am clear that had I been in Pakistan, my son would not have had the difficulties that he has had as our son, the son of a Pakistani father and a Lebanese mother. So on that, the answer is clear. The last I visited Pakistan was in 2000 with him. And that's not the last I visited Pakistan. The last time in 2000, he and I came to Pakistan together. And whenever people would ask him, do you speak Urdu? And he, of course, understood Arabic and talked and spoke a little Arabic. And he would look at me with a pained expression and say, my father never taught me Urdu. And so that the yearning is there. This talk for me is a very emotional one. When I talked to the Society of Indian Academic Economists, it was also very emotional one. The partition, I am a child of the partition. But you know, in all fairness, I owe a lot to this country. It allowed me a life where free from coercion. And when I see now and I hear some of the columnists, I wanted to dedicate this talk to Arshad Sharif Marhoom, whom I have never met and who I only listened to on video after Imran Khan's government fell. But I did not dedicate it because it would have been misunderstood. So the yearning is there. But the freedom which allowed me to grow and develop, and I talk about this in the INET video, I don't think would have been available, I'm sorry to say, in Pakistan. And I would have had to conform. I'm not strong enough to have stood out. I would have had to conform, and I would have conformed. And if you will allow me a personal note, my father never conformed, and he suffered a lot during the period. He joined Pakistan State Bank and retired from, I now forget the Pakistan, it was Oil Authority General, I forget his name, was in charge. And that was the last position that he held. He stayed in Pakistan all his while. And so I'm not sure whether I could have developed to the extent that I have developed into my current identity. I'm not sure I would have developed had I come to Pakistan full-time. How about part-time? Yeah, part-time I tried. Whenever Nawab Haider Naqvi invited me, you invited me, and you treated me very well. The Pakistan government treated me very well. They even gave me an honorarium when I spoke to the Planning Commission. I didn't expect it, and so on. So I don't know. So this is I'm very sorry for my emotional reply, but it's an emotional question.
Hansab, you've in fact touched an emotional chord in all of us. All of us yearn for a Pakistan where academics will enjoy freedom, where academics will enjoy the ability to drive Pakistan forward in terms of theory and ideas. Right now, Pakistan is lagging behind in ideas. We are losing the human capital and the ideological debate, the think debate, which India is winning, and we unfortunately losing in a very big way. And the reasons for that, we need to discuss it on the webinar. But Hansab, you're always an inspiration. And what you said today, I think will move many people. And what I would like to say in the end is, Hansab, Zoom is available. Now we should get you to talk to us more often, not occasionally. We don't have the money anymore to bring you here. Inshallah, we will find it and we'll bring you here. But now with Zoom, I would urge you and request you most humbly, give us a talk every quarter or so that we can have a conversation and our kids can learn about you and learn from you. What you said about Debro today is very moving and very interesting. And I'm sure many of our people will be taking it up again. And I'm personally a great fan of Debro too, and a fan of your work. But nowadays, now we're going to call you every 3 months to talk to you. But I'll say goodbye only to say that I'll call you on Zoom, on WhatsApp, and inshallah, we'll have a more detailed conversation of a more personal nature. Thank you very much.
Thank you for this invitation, and thank you for all your love and understanding over the now and over the years.
Thank you. All the best. Khuda Hafiz.
Khuda Hafiz. Khuda Hafiz.